But Hurts, I mean, this is the real year for him because, like you said, with those 3 first-round picks, they're going to need to decide on these 17 games this year whether or not he's the guy going forward.
Voice is with us, and you can follow Matt on Twitter if you're not already at Matt_Mullin. And I saw a couple of things in the latest piece. Harry has been referencing it now earlier. This is how big of a story the Sirianni stuff was, Matt, is that I tried just assuming, especially since Barrett is off playing golf somewhere, that Harry would be more than willing to open up, sink his teeth into a nice, juicy, open conversation. And he was purposely shifting the conversation back to the Philadelphia Eagles. Normally, he's the one derailing, yet he was, hey, come on, he, dare I say, Matt Mullin, got it back to the Eagles.
That's right.
Harry fired up about this.
I was, man. This was good stuff, man. And we did it on a day with Barrett not even on the show. Barrett is always chomping at the bit to talk football, no matter what it is. If it's just meaningless fodder conversation or if it's really juicy stuff. But this to me is pretty good. I mean, Michael Robinson saying he's not going to name names, but he knows guys in the locker room doubt the coach's ability to lead.
Well, it's funny. I was just reading Marcus Hayes had a story today where he, I guess, the way it's worded, it might have been a collective effort of the Eagles reporters there, but they reached out to Eagles players in the locker room, and they did find somebody came back and said, yeah, I'm skeptical, and some of the other guys in the locker room are as well. And I kind of agree with what Marcus wrote after that is, of course you're skeptical of the guy. He hasn't been ahead. Like, there's a thing called healthy skepticism. And I think that involves being, this guy's going to come in. He's never been a head coach at any level before. So you don't know how he's going to handle those tasks. He might be able to scheme the hell out of an offense, but that's not what being a coach is. It's more being the CEO, being the executive, the manager kind of thing. So I think, be skeptical of a guy. I think the problem is don't go run and say that to a reporter. You keep that kind of stuff in house. But I don't think there's anything wrong with guys, being skeptical of a first timer.
Well, it's as you pointed out, it's similar to what happened with Doug Peterson when he started out.
Oh yeah.
It's
same, even the same, all the way down to them saying, I think he was brought in to be a yes man. I mean, that was kind of one of the knocks on Peterson, was bringing this guy who's familiar with the organization, who, who
nobody else interviewed. Nobody else interviewed him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Miss out on the quote unquote top guys. Now, whether or not that was, they just missed out on those guys or they wanted Sirianni over those guys, I can't say one way or the other. I wasn't in the room. I don't know what their board of coaches looked like. But it was the same thing with him. And as Marcus pointed out in his story today, it was the same thing with Ray Rhodes. It was the same thing with Andy Reid. The only guy that got the fans and people excited was the guy who flamed out the fastest. Yeah, it was Chip.
Right.
So maybe it is good that we're skeptical of the guy.
Yeah. I mean, who are the guys that Peterson was hired over? McAdoo and Gase, right? They would have been disasters. Yeah.
So here's when you look at some of the guys that Chip was hired over, there weren't really slam dunk guys there that went on to be, great coaches. At least I don't think so.
There was one, I thought. No, Gus Bradley. It was Gus Bradley. Yeah, the Gus bust. Yeah.
Here's what I am disappointed about this year. And maybe this is a column in the next week or so, Matt. But what I'm disappointed in is that I can't do what I really want to do this year. And I want to take the year off from agita. I want to take the year off from my stomach and my head and everything going crazy. But I can't, because the one thing that's still here are these damn reports. It's like it's still, these guys haven't even been here long enough to piss people off. And we have the same crap that's been happening with Peterson, with Carson, before these guys even got here. It's like, I really want to just watch this team and let everybody grow. But once again, I'm surrounded by these reports.
I mean, the only advice I can tell you is that's just that's life in the media, in reporting now. I mean, that's what these guys, that's how they're getting their stories out, it seems like. Try to ignore it.
Well, no, here's the thing. I'm not saying that I'm critical of Kemsky or anybody, doing the work. What I'm saying though is that
you're critical of the reports coming out of the locker room in the first place, that they're leaving those walls. Yeah.
This is, Josina Anderson saying, well, I'm hearing that people don't like Carson Wentz in the hallway, or this is a cornerback who's been traded saying Chip Kelly won't even look at you. Now, look, these things could be true. Don't get me wrong, but they haven't even had time to develop yet.
Right. With some of the stuff coming out with Wentz or with player, situations that have been festering for a little while, I understand what a player could be looking to get out of leaking that information. I have no earthly idea what a player thinks how this would even benefit them personally, let alone the team.
Is there any merit to and look, I'm not trying to out or anything like that. I'm just trying to create a hypothetical just to follow up on that. And Harry, Matt, the stream, everybody else, does Zach Ertz gain anything by leaking this? Because he's the only one that I think wants out, right?
Right, but Ertz hasn't been there. He hasn't been at any of the practices or camps. So how could he say that, this guy hasn't been, living up to my expectations or whatever?
He could say it off the record. So let's take this in a
true. Sense. I mean, yeah, he could, but I would hope that a reporter would push back on that and say, well, what experience do you actually have with this guy? So yeah, I don't think it would be coming from him. Plus, I don't think he's the kind of guy who would do something like that.
How do you,
Harry?
What's that?
Just playing Dragnet. That's all.
Oh yeah, right. Just the facts. How do you look at this season, Matt? Like I use the word sort of an experiment. This season is, because it's not only the head coach, it's also the quarterback. You're trying to sort of look and see if he's really a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. You're thinking the same thing about the head coach. And by the way, the carrot at the end of it, or the thing that's sort of the bailout, is the possibility of having 3 first-round picks in next year's draft.
Well, and I think so. I also am viewing this year as kind of an experiment, kind of see what you have type thing. But like you said, it's also a critical year, because by the end of the year, the coach, I think, unless there's some sort of disaster or something, that I can't even imagine what that would be. I think he's got at least 2 years. I think Lurie is the kind of guy who's not going to ditch a coach after 1 year. But Hurts, I mean, this is the real year for him, because like you said, with those 3 first-round picks, they're going to need to decide on these 17 games this year whether or not he's the guy going forward. You can't waste this opportunity to either trade for a guy if, Deshaun Watson's situation plays out and he's available to you, or to use those picks to move up and get whatever quarterback you want. So in that sense, in the Jalen Hurts sense, it's more than just an experiment year. I think it's a make or break year for him. But overall for the team, yes, I think, don't get too hung up on the wins and losses. Look at the season as a whole and see if, guys like Hurts, and especially Sirianni, obviously, but even Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, all these other guys, if they're better in week 17 than they were in week 1, even if the team is 1-16, the season was a success.
Yeah. And the left tackle position.
I mean, obviously all these little things have to fill out along the way, but if you see the players growing, you see the coach growing, you see signs of improvement and positive momentum going into the next year, it was a success, regardless of wins and losses.
So again, I'm not going to go back to the same question, but I am curious how you see this now. What happens if we're trying to do this and guys are trying to go out and, Devonta Smith has a couple of weeks where he's not great, or Jalen Hurts has a couple of weeks in which he's not great. And we're just trying to be patient. And then here comes Jimmy Kemsky with a report that's been validated and verified by you and Evan Macy, and it's been proven, right, that 6 or 7 people in the locker room are talking. And what's Jimmy going to do? Sit on it? He's got to put it out there. Philly Voice is the most read thing in the online presence now for the next week because of this report. Everybody's on Twitter talking about it. I still like it's hard for me or anybody to just turn that off. I have to factor in that I feel like this team is not going to be allowed to grow because it's always going to be something whenever there is a bad game, week, or stretch.
Well, I think then, I mean, you'd hope, obviously it hasn't happened yet, but you would hope that after camp, when Sirianni is there every day, day in, day out with these guys, that he can put some sort of clamp on that leaking faucet, whatever you want to call it. That I think, yes, it's something that, sure, it's not going to, win or lose you game, but it does hurt a developing team.
Yeah.
Now we've seen this for so long. You have to start to wonder, is it from these new guys who are just coming in, or is it coming from people who have been here for a long time? Because a lot of the roster has turned over, yet these leaks keep coming. Mm-hmm. And part of me wonders, we all know Howie Roseman is famous, doing stuff through the media. And I'm not saying he's leaking this stuff, but I'm saying other people see that in the organization. And so maybe they feel emboldened. Hey, look, our boss is doing it. Why can't I slide something to the media here? I mean, I agree. It's annoying. It needs to stop. It makes my job easier. So I don't fully hate it, but I agree with your fans how it can get super tiring. What were you saying?
No, I'm sorry. Now you're speaking directly to Harry's soul, which is it's only thing that matters is for our job. That's it.
All right. That said, what is your predicted record on July 15th for the Eagles? Or maybe you've already done this.
I think I'm at 6-11 right now. That could change from what I see out of them at camp, but I think 6-11 is a fair place to be. I think they win 3 division games, maybe pick up 3 elsewhere.
Yeah, I think I was 7-10 when I did it, but so that's right there.
Between 5-12, 7-10, somewhere. It sounds weird talking like that. Doesn't even sound like a
17 games is weird. Yeah, it is.
It's thrown me off, but But yeah, no, I think anywhere in that is kind of where you're looking with them.
Do you think the Eagles actually, you know what? Hold tight real quick. Matt Mullin from Philly Voice is joining us at Matt_Mullin on Twitter. We're going to take a quick one here on Sports Map Radio, back in 3 on the middle. Do you think the Philadelphia Eagles should issue a statement about Deshaun Watson? And I mean like we're not interested type statement on Deshaun Watson, because until they do, I'm kind of led to believe that they have interest.
I think they do too.
I think it probably goes back to we don't comment on players on other teams. Mm-hmm. So where they wouldn't comment affirmatively if they were, I think the same thing applies. Yeah. They're not going to say no. Couldn't they those questions are coming. I mean, training camp's coming. They're going to be getting bombarded with those questions, especially.
He's a top 5 quarterback. You'd have to have interest in him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. What if he's out for the year?
Well,
the year. I mean, it's
that's like the training wheels year for Sirianni anyway.
Yeah, with just a look, I could see the Eagles trying to have their cake and eat it too, saying, "Look, we'll trade for Deshaun Watson when his stock is super low. He's going to sit for a year, let's say hypothetically, and this buys us time now with Jalen Hurts for his season. And if he can play, we'll trade him or just keep him and see if somebody wants him. And if not, then we roll with 2 quarterbacks and we have a great backup."